Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and as always, welcome back to yet another installment in my Lost mini-series on the channel, where we take a lesser, semi-unknown character within the MK series, tackle the importance surrounding them, explore what became of their fate in the franchise, and what may have been the original purpose and design behind their creation. Because today, I couldn't think of a better choice in mind than an extremely obscure face in the fandom that has gained quite a bit of infamy over the last few years. I'm of course talking about the original Saurian fated to appear in the 3D era of games, and seeming lost host to the Dragon King Onaga, Tiamat. Now Tiamat, by all intents and purposes, is a really interesting character to the MK mythos. Because whilst he's a character that didn't quite make it off the cutting room floor, the narrative implications surrounding Tiamat, as well as its name, really does make it sound like he may have been designed to become something so much more, especially with Outworld's original ruler floating on the horizon. So in today's video, we will be exploring the inception behind the character, what led to his design and later cancellation, what could he have meant to the universe, as well as whether or not we could actually see him return in the future. Is it at all possible for a character like Tiamat to appear in the new current present of the new era? But just before we do begin, as always, a quick reminder here that if you like what we do here and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe, as well as give this video a thumbs up. It's a small thing, but it really does go a monumentous way in supporting the channel. Anyway, let's delve right into things. Now, to understand the purpose behind Tiamat's creation, we do actually have to understand the circumstances surrounding the series at this time, and what was going on creatively that led to his inception. Thus, this takes us to the early 2000s at the start of the millennium, and the MK series in itself was in a really weird place at this point in time. You see, at the tail end of the 90s, the Mortal Kombat series kind of fell out of favour with pop culture and fans, as MK Annihilation kind of destroyed any good faith with fans, at least when it came with on-screen adaptations. Mythologies, whilst held up in high acclaim now, did largely splinter the fandom, as many people hated the gameplay but did love the narrative. And around this time, MK moved away from being a 2D fighter to that of a 3D one. And whilst MK4 was not a bad installment by any means, it simply wasn't held up in high acclaim like prior titles. Hell, when you even think about the 3D trilogy of games, 4 is most commonly left out as a bit of an anomaly in the franchise. But behind the scenes, the biggest hit to the series actually came in the form of the departure of John Tobias. Mortal Kombat's head narrative designer and writer left for reasons that aren't entirely disclosed to this very day, although it's strongly believed that studio interference was a strong factor in this. Even so, the departure of Tobias marked an end for his creative vision and world, so things were kind of up in the air for the series due to the circumstances surrounding this. So much so that Midway actually gave the studio more time to work on their next installment, and bring in longtime developer and designer John Vogel to become the series' new main narrative lead. So with a new creative mind, the series was more or less primed for a very new direction, as the ensuing trilogy would serve as a direct sequel to the prior games, but was built upon a far more grisly tone, with Liu Kang's and Shao Kahn's death marking a much bleaker future. So naturally, with a new creative visionary behind characters, this meant new characters and new faces to usher in this direction. And when I say there's a lot of faces, I mean there's a lot. Maybe a bit too much. Because when we open up the contents of the game's crypt, a place infamously known for storing the early concepts and drafts of MK games, we are flooded with a lot, and I mean a lot of concept art for Deadly Alliance, showing the crazy amount of different and wacky ideas floating around during the creative process of Deadly Alliance. But of the few that did make it off the cutting room floor was a character and design by the name of Tiamat. Whilst he didn't quite make it to the full rigging and modelling phase of things, he did make it far enough off the cutting room floor to be given his own name and identity, something noticeably different from the rest of the concept art, where some were simply given the name of Evil Monk 2. Point is that Tiamat was quite special even from the naming convention alone, as it symbolizes a lot for the character and how he could actually tie into different elements in the world and universe of MK, including something that I believe was left behind in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, but some people may have not picked up on just yet. But back on the topic at hand, why exactly did they go for Tiamat of all names? what makes it so important? Well, when it comes to names in MK, there's always been a tongue-in-cheek approach of how a lot of them are named, showing what they are clearly influenced by. Shao Kahn is obviously derived from Genghis Khan, Noob Saibot is John Tobias and Ed Boon's surname backwards, and even Mocap is just Mocap but with a K. The point is that they've never been quite so direct with their naming conventions, even with their code names. But why choose Tiamat? Why is that so important here? Well, the name itself does derive from ancient Mesopotamian legend, where Tiamat is an ancient primordial sea goddess, as well as the mother to all gods and monsters. It was her demise by the hands of King Marduk, which was a necessity for the creation of the sun, moon, and mountains. Whilst not entirely framed as a villainous figure, Tiamat was a primordial whose death had to happen to usher in this new age of gods, much like the Titans with the Olympians, and giants with the Asgardians. And funnily enough, this would mirror events in the MK mythos, where we learned that during the 3D trilogy, the Elder Gods had to defeat the Primordial for one being, as his body would be used to forge the realms. But how exactly does this relate to Tiamat? Well, it does so in a pretty big way, because originally, during the early development of Deadly Alliance, Tiamat was seemingly destined to be the next reptile and saurian of this era. He was supposed to be their representative of this trilogy, replacing Syzoth and having a very bright and optimistic future. Yet for one reason or another, this would never quite come to be, as Tiamat was effectively removed from the game name-wise, but his design and model would be kept and simply passed on to Reptile. And as we know, the destined fate of Reptile would be one where he would become the vessel for the Dragon King Onaga, something fully capitalized upon in Mortal Kombat Deception, but it's kind of hard and impossible to ignore what could have been with Tiamat, especially knowing of Onaga's main objective in Deception, to restore the age of the Primordials as the one being. So with all of these factors in mind, the destined fate of Tiamat could have been very, very different, and I do think we actually get a very brief glimpse of it in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, but it's a rather ambiguous one, because when we do look into Raiden's arcade ladder ending, for the first time ever, we do actually get a very brief glimpse at Onaga, with a completely new and very different design, one that has more of an armored appearance, but does look heavily influenced by Shao Kahn, which makes sense, seeing as Onaga was Khan's predecessor. But I really do feel like the different design choice here would have been influenced by his host. And for those of you who don't know, with Onaga's death, it has been written into the MK mythos that whomever he would choose as a host, he would take on their characteristics, and a part of them with him. We know that from Mortal Kombat Deception, as well as the cancelled Mortal Kombat X comic book line, where he was designed to return. Thus, what I think we see here could have been what Onaga was originally designed to look like, until they really committed to Reptile being his host in Mortal Kombat Deception. And of course, with what I've mentioned here with Tiamat's ties to divinity, the direction we could have gotten with him may have been very different with how the 3D trilogy concluded. But of course now, this does take us onto the current present, with the new era forged in Liu Kang's vision. So with a fresh canvas, could it be possible for someone like Tiamat to return? Well, honestly, yeah, 100%. Truth be told, Tiamat's in a really unique position as a character, because really, he's more of a design and idea than anything locked in stone right now. And with the new era taking a very different approach with how they're handling Onaga, he basically has an entire origin and background that's completely free and open to be written, no longer tied to either Reptile or Onaga. He could take on a completely new design and unique appearance, or if NetherRealm really wanted to, and tap into the mythological elements surrounding his name. Maybe Tiamat could be one of many Dragon Kings that occupied different realms, prior to the Age of Exile by the hands of Shao's ancestors, again mirroring what happened to their mythological counterparts. So with that said, and everything I've covered here in terms of lore, story, theories, and narratives, what are your overall thoughts on Tiamat? What do you believe to be the fate of this Zartaran? And what do you believe was planned for him? Please do comment down below. And of course, would you like to see him return in the new era and present? And if so, how? I'd love to hear what you all have to say. But for now everyone, that's been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and I'll catch you in the next one.